This video is sponsored by MPB.
Artists need to pay the bills too, but if you're anything like me, you've struggled with working out how to put your work out there and sell it, what format it should be in, how you market your work without feeling like you're compromising, and even finding the confidence to put your work out there in the first place. I recently took a trip down to London and sat down to chat with Stuart Waplington, who is the founder CEO of the Printspace, which is the company I use to produce all the prints that I sell online. This video isn't sponsored by the Printspace. They haven't paid me to make it. In fact, the sponsor on this video is actually MPB, who I'll tell you about in a bit. But I just thought that Stuart is in a unique position to give some very practical advice to those of us who struggle with the idea of putting our work online and trying to sell it in order to make a living. So I'm gonna shut up now and let you hear from my friend, Stuart Waplington.
I'm Stuart Waplington. I'm CEO and founder of the Printspace, which is the first online fine art printing company in the UK. At the Printspace, we work with 27,000 professional photographers and artists and semi-professionals and amateurs, and we see a lot of a progression as people go through their careers, and we sort of help guide them through that process of how to make a viable career out of their work. One of our key sort of driving forces really here is creating freedom for artists and photographers to be able to make a living from their work. You know, when we started off, it was really expensive to put on an exhibition, and it was the preserve of the successful photographers or artists or the independently wealthy. So what we've wanted to do is to enable people to sell online directly to their own followers and people who appreciate their work. So to connect directly with an audience for their work instead of having to go and sort of convince a gallery to put on their work, that they could sort of take control of their career. And that's really important for us. You know, we really believe that technology sort of liberates people and it enables them to connect directly with their own audience. I think there's this kind of sense with creativity, photography with artists, and I don't kind of know where it comes from, but there's this sense that, okay, we can't talk about money, we can't talk about making revenue, we can't talk about, you know, how I make this sustainable, because that somehow is going to be detrimental to people are not going to view my work in the same way, or it might sort of contaminate my own sort of creativity. But I think that's the sort of outdated dogma. At the end of the day, everybody's got to live. I think that it should be taught in arts colleges, and you know, I think that it's a shame, because I think so many talented artists and photographers come out of art college and they just don't know where to start. And I think, you know, that you've got to start with saying it's okay to make a living out of this. It's okay to think commercially. It's okay to be willing to market yourself and push yourself forward. We encourage everybody to start selling prints, and actually it's really interesting because some of the people, you know, we have over 1,000 illustrators and photographers who sell through us, and galleries and media sites. And for example, I can think of one person in the top 10 who's got actually quite a small following on Instagram, but because he actually makes, I think his content that he puts out on Instagram is very much about his work and about the subject matter, that people who do engage with it really engage with it. And so we always say to people, look, if you have like 100 followers that are super engaged with your work, you can actually sell more than someone with 10,000, 100,000. I think it's really important to build a quality following as much as it is a quantity following. And the way you do that, often, if you think about, a lot of famous artists that you might know over the last 100 years, then you would know as much about them personally as you would about their work. And I think that's really important because, what we see in people who've got really strong engagement and that leads to really strong sales is that they put a lot of their motivations for making work out there, whether it's in a newsletter, whether it's in a video, whether it's in some photographs and writing about it, a blog piece, whatever it is. So I think it's really important for people to understand your why. It's really important to understand, because when you buy a print and you have it on your wall, when people come around your house and they come around for dinner and things like that, they're actually going to want to know a little bit more about that piece of work. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of print buyers is to really understand, okay, this is why this person makes that work. This is why they started out doing this work. This is how they got to the level of the quality that they're producing there. This is why they took that actual shot. This is what the body of work was about. If you start developing that sort of skill of telling your own story, of telling your why about your creativity, then I think that's where you can get a super engaged following. And then those people will just want to support you. This is a body of work by Doogie Wallace called Well Heeled, and it was shot in London, Tokyo, New York, and Milan. And these are dogs, pampered pooches. These are obviously shot in the affluent districts of those cities. On the one level, they're really whimsical, funny shots and full of personality and really nice sort of aesthetic things to have on your wall. But also, there's a deeper story behind them. There's sort of themes of, wealth inequality and affluence and some of these dogs are wearing diamonds and sitting in Ferraris. So there's actually a story, a deeper level to the work. So it kind of works on that aesthetic level. So it's a great sort of thing to have on your wall, but there's also a deeper story behind it. And it's really, really important when you sell that work to sort of put that story onto your site, whether you do it by a video, or someone writing about your work, that, you actually tell that story because, people, when they buy that print, they want to understand the work and why you made it. So here's another piece of work by a photographer who sells for us called Elizabeth Gadd. And it's obviously clearly a very different type of work. So we know that landscapes do exceptionally well on Instagram, and Elizabeth has built up a big following on Instagram through this body of work. But what's really interesting is that on Instagram, some landscape photography doesn't actually sell that well, and Elizabeth's does. And I think one of the reasons for that is that there is a deeper story to it. Elizabeth grew up in British Columbia and has a very sort of deep relationship with nature. And by putting herself in the images, she's sort of creating themes around human nature interaction and the sort of calmness and meditative state that being surrounded by nature gives us. When you look at the feeling behind these images, you can see that, they're very positive, they're very calming. And so you can really understand how someone would want to have this on their wall, because it would evoke similar feelings for them. So this is, I think, why there's a deeper story again to these images. There's a deeper meaning behind them. They're beautiful and aesthetic, but there's, she tells that story very well on when she sells her prints, and I think that's what contributes to her success. So when you start a project, I really don't think that you should be thinking about whether it will sell or not. But the reality is that there are certain types of work that will sell as prints, and I think there's certain types of work that would sell probably better as books, for example. So if you have something that's, really challenging subject matter, sometimes that won't translate to print sales, but that will probably translate to an exhibition or a book quite well, because it will have quite a strong narrative and quite a strong point to it. You've got to start with your why, and then you probably have to find the way of commercializing that works with that why. You don't sort of start from a commercial end and sort of work back to the why. You can have it in the back of your mind about, what's going to kind of work in terms of print sales. You can definitely have it in the back of your mind, but I wouldn't let that encroach on your core mission, what you want to say with your work, what your why, because I think then you'd be kind of compromising the message and what you're trying to say. Make sure that you've got something at every single price point, because what happens is that people get to know your work and they want to support you. They want to support you as an artist, and they also want to have your work on their wall. And if they've only got £80, £100 to spend on a print, then make sure they can buy a small print, maybe it's a larger edition from you, and later on in their life, when they've got more disposable income, as people generally do as they progress through their career, they'll come back and they'll buy one of your bigger pieces. You should give someone the chance to own something of yours, and when they've got it on the wall for the next 5 years or even longer, every single day they're looking at your work, and everybody who's coming around their house is looking at your work. So it's not just a great way to support your own career, but it's a great way to sort of develop long-term relationships with collectors. Now, you've got amazing work that you spent months, if not years, thinking about. Don't fall at the last hurdle and not really make a big thing out of this. Tease out the work, have a grand reveal, and repeat when it's going to be available. Have a big build-up. Get people to sign up to your newsletter to get advance access or free shipping, because people really pay attention to email newsletters. They are absolutely the best converting sources of print sales. So work hard on building up that newsletter. Have your big timed release and keep repeating to people that this is only available for 7 days, 14 days. Don't make the time too long, because people will think, oh, I'll do that in 2 weeks, but 2 weeks is a long time, and people will forget and things will happen in their life. Keep it short, keep it very focused, and keep repeating it, and this is the way to drive print sales, and ultimately people will be grateful for that, because you have to pierce through all of the noise that you have online these days, and in our lives. Our lives are probably busier and more complicated than they've ever been, and you have to pierce through that. When you do, and they have that print on their wall and they're enjoying it and their friends are loving it and they're talking, and it's a talking point for them, then they'll be grateful for that. So don't feel at all shy about doing that or feel like you're pushing your work too hard. Push it. You spent months and years making this work and developing the skills to do it. I talk to a lot of friends. I've got a very good friend from Brighton who's literally one of the best photographers I think I've ever seen. And he keeps saying, well, I'm just waiting for my work to get to this point before I start selling it. And I keep saying, look, just start selling it. Because if you always say it's got to be at this point, then you kind of never get there. It just sort of, moves with the horizon kind of thing. Just start. If you sell one print, that is a win, because somebody has wanted your work on their wall and wants to look at it every day, and it's going to inspire them. And that's a start. If you can sell one print, you can sell 10. And if you sell 10, you can sell 100. So just start, and your confidence will grow as you go. Your confidence won't grow if you just sit there and think about it. You can't think your way into being confident. You can only do it. It's like a muscle, it gets stronger. Your confidence gets stronger by exercising it, and that means to actually start putting your work out there.
I'm really grateful to Stuart for sitting down and giving his advice so freely, and I hope you found it as helpful as I did. And like I said, I've used the PrintSpace to produce all the prints that I sell online for years now, and I've always enjoyed how quick their service is, and the quality of the prints is just great. And if you want to check them out for yourself, I would recommend going onto their website and ordering a sample pack. They have one for photographers and one for illustrators, and you'll then be able to see all the papers that they offer and all the different print processes and choose what's right for your work and assess the quality for yourself. They also have a really intuitive hub system on the back end of their website where you can upload your print files and store them there, and then you can even order them directly so that they come to you, or you can connect your website directly to that hub so that when a customer orders, the PrintSpace will automatically drop ship your print to your customer. With the drop shipping service, you can even upload your own branding so that your prints arrive with your customers as if you packaged them up yourself. I ordered one of Elizabeth Gadd's beautiful prints, and it arrived with her custom packaging, branding, and certificates, which makes the whole unboxing experience something a little more special. The PrintSpace is open in the UK and in Germany, and they're about to open up in the US, which means that you get cheaper, faster shipping from those hubs to the customers that are closest to them, which is another reason I find it so convenient to use them. Also to mention that Stuart's written a book called How to Sell Art Online, full of practical advice like you've heard today and a whole lot more, including some case studies of photographers who found good ways to sell their prints. And you can get that directly from the PrintSpace website. All you need to pay is the £3 shipping, or you can request that it's included free with your next print order. So I'll leave a link to that down below. And lastly, thanks especially to MPB who've sponsored this episode. They're a great online platform for buying and selling used camera gear. MPB will appeal to photographers or filmmakers in two different categories. And the first are those who, like myself, prefer to buy used equipment so you can save a bit of money. But the great thing about buying through a reputable seller like MPB is not only will you get a fair price based on the condition of the camera body or lens that you're purchasing, but you'll also get a 6-month warranty for peace of mind. The second group are those photographers who just find that they're collecting too much gear and it's rattling around their camera bag, but they're not getting a lot of use out of it. MPB will buy your used gear off you, and I like the idea that then it gets loaded onto their platform where it has the potential to be purchased by another photographer or filmmaker who will get better use out of it than I do, and they'll be able to make beautiful art with it. Getting a quote for the items you want to sell is really easy from their website, and they'll even send a courier to pick the items up for you to save you a trip to the post office. I did it just this week. I sold a Sigma 100 to 400mm lens. I went onto the website, got the quote, I was happy with it, I boxed everything up, I printed out the label they gave me, and they even gave me a 1-hour slot when the courier would arrive. They arrived on time, I handed it over. It couldn't have been simpler. So whether you're looking to buy a used camera body or lens to add to your equipment, or you find you just have too much gear that you're not using and you want to sell it on, I'll leave a link to MPB down in the description. Go along and check them out.